I am Emily, and I've been married to David for the last 3 years. We had an ideal life, and he loved me as if I were his princess. However, I was not the princess. I never deserved him. That's because I had a lover, Liam. One day, I got a phone call from him. He was in Boston and wanted to meet me, but I could not leave home. Otherwise, my husband would be suspicious. So, we made a risky plan. I invited him for dinner, asking him to act as my best friend from high school. I began preparing dinner, and the rich aroma of roasted rosemary chicken filled the kitchen, but my mind was far from the dinner I had prepared. I couldn't stop thinking about Liam. Soon, he would walk through my front door, just as we had planned. A sharp thrill shot through me at the thought of him, like a low hum vibrating under my skin. I could feel my pulse quickening, anticipation mixing with a hint of nerves. The thrill of deception, the forbidden nature of what I was about to do, only fueled my desire for the night ahead. In the living room, I could hear David comfortably sitting on the couch, oblivious to the storm brewing right under his nose. The sound of the television hummed in the background as he flipped through channels, completely unaware of the dangerous game I was preparing to play. Trusting, kind David. He had no reason to suspect me. Why would he? I had suggested inviting Liam for dinner as a kind gesture. He's in town for a job interview, I had said with innocence. He doesn't have anywhere to stay. David had smiled, so trusting, so eager to please.
Invite him,
He had said.
It'll be nice to meet one of your childhood friends.
The sound of the doorbell snapped me back to the present, my heart leaping into my throat. I quickly wiped my hands on my apron, smoothing my hair as I caught a glance at myself in the hallway mirror. The woman who stared back at me looked calm and composed, but beneath the surface, I was a bundle of nerves and excitement. When I opened the door, there he was. Liam. His tall frame filled the doorway, and as soon as our eyes locked, I felt the spark between us ignite. His confident smirk sent a shiver through me, his piercing gaze holding mine for a beat too long. It took everything in me to maintain control, to not let the desire bubbling up inside me show on my face.
Hey,
He said, his voice low and intimate, his lips curling into a private smile meant only for me. Come in, I whispered back, stepping aside to let him in, my heart hammering in my chest. I could feel the tension in the air, the dangerous energy crackling between us. David was just a few steps away, blissfully unaware of what was brewing. Liam entered the house and immediately slid into the role of the old friend, shaking hands with David, his charm on full display.
David, it's great to meet you.
He said, flashing a warm, genuine smile. David, as always, played the gracious host, completely oblivious.
Same here, man. Emily's told me a lot about you. Make yourself at home.
As we all sat down for dinner, the conversation flowed easily enough. Liam talked about his supposed job interview. David made light jokes about work, and I sat between them, smiling and nodding as though I was nothing more than the perfect hostess. But beneath the table, something else was unfolding, hidden from David's view. My foot moved slowly under the table, searching for Liam's leg. When I found him, I slid my toes up his calf, sending jolts of electricity through him. He stiffened slightly, though his face remained composed, as though nothing was wrong. But the heat in his eyes told me otherwise. David, still oblivious, raised his glass for a toast.
To old friends and new beginnings.
He said cheerfully, completely unaware of the hidden tension cracking around the table.
To new beginnings.
Liam said, though his eyes never left mine. We were playing with fire, and I loved every second of it. As the dinner continued, our secret touches grew bolder. My foot teased higher, grazing the inside of Liam's thigh. His body reacted to my touch, and I felt a thrill rush through me, one that had nothing to do with the food in front of me and everything to do with the dangerous game we were playing. My pulse quickened, and I had to remind myself to keep my expression neutral, to not give anything away. Halfway through the meal, David excused himself to the bathroom. The second the door closed behind him, the atmosphere in the room shifted. It was as if the very air between Liam and me thickened with desire. I turned to him, my eyes dark with want. Without a word, he leaned in, capturing my lips in a deep, hungry kiss. The taste of him, the feel of his lips against mine, sent a shockwave of heat through my body. It was urgent and frantic, as though we were both trying to make up for lost time in the few stolen moments we had. His hands found my hair, pulling me closer, while mine tangled in his shirt, tugging at the fabric, desperate to feel more of him. His body pressed against mine, and for a brief, wild moment, I forgot everything else. I forgot David, the dinner, the consequences. All that mattered was the way Liam made me feel. Alive, dangerous, free.
We don't have much time.
He whispered against my lips, his breath coming in short, ragged gasps. I know, I replied, breathless, my hands gripping his shoulders, holding him tight. But I want more. We barely had time to pull apart, to compose ourselves before we heard the flush of the toilet and the bathroom door opening. I quickly straightened my clothes, my heart racing as I forced myself to appear calm. David returned to the table, looking pale and uncomfortable, rubbing his stomach with a small frown. Everything okay? I asked, feigning concern, trying to hide the exhilaration I still felt coursing through my veins.
Yeah,
David muttered.
just a little stomach ache.
I shot a quick glance at Liam, my pulse still pounding. The thrill of it all, the secrecy, the danger, the risk had me on edge. But beneath it all, there was the knowledge that this was only the beginning. The night was still young, and there was so much more to come. My mind was racing. I needed more time with Liam, more moments alone where we wouldn't have to steal glances or rush our touches. But with David here, blissfully unaware yet still present, it wasn't possible. He had to be distracted, out of the way. Then it hit me, a wicked idea flashing across my mind, thrilling me with its delicious simplicity. I excused myself to the kitchen, pretending I needed to fetch something for David to help with his stomach discomfort. In reality, I was reaching for the small bottle of laxatives I had hidden earlier, just in case the opportunity arose. I glanced back quickly to make sure David wasn't watching, and with practiced ease, I crushed 2 pills into his drink, stirring them into the liquid until they dissolved completely. My heart pounded as I returned to the table, masking my intentions with a sweet smile. Here, honey, I said. This should help settle your stomach. David, completely oblivious, took a grateful sip, sighing in relief.
Thanks, hun.
I watched him closely, waiting for the pills to take effect. It didn't take long. Minutes later, he shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his face tightening with discomfort as the laxatives began to do their work.
Excuse me again.
He muttered, standing up abruptly and hurrying back to the bathroom. As soon as he disappeared down the hallway, I turned to Liam and our eyes met, full of understanding. This was our moment. Without hesitating, I grabbed Liam by the collar and pulled him toward me. Our lips collided and the heat between us reignited instantly. My hands were everywhere, desperate, frantic, sliding up his chest, tugging at his belt. His hands, just as eager, found their way up my waist, pulling me closer. We moved together with an intensity that bordered on wild, knowing we had only moments before David would return. Poor David thought I had given him medicine to make him feel good. He did not know it only worsened his condition. By the time he came back to the table, he looked pale and exhausted. His steps were slow, and I could see the discomfort etched on his face. He sat down heavily, groaning as he leaned back in his chair.
I think I need to lie down.
He said weakly, holding his stomach.
I don't feel so good.
My voice was soft as I brushed my fingers across his cheek. Of course, sweetheart. You go ahead. I'll finish up here. David nodded, barely managing a smile before shuffling off to bed. His movements were slow, and I watched him disappear, his presence finally gone for the night. The second he was out of sight, I turned back to Liam, and my heart ignited with desire all over again. Now, I whispered, my voice low and urgent. I didn't have to ask twice. Liam's hands were on me in an instant, sliding up my thighs as I pressed my body against his. We kissed passionately, our bodies hungry and impatient as we stumbled toward the couch. My legs straddled him, and I could feel his heat against me as his lips followed down my neck. His hands roamed my body freely, and I let out a soft moan. The thrill of it all, the secrecy, the risk pushing me further. But I wasn't done. The night was far from over. "Follow me," I whispered, my breath hot against Liam's ear. And without hesitation, he followed as I led him upstairs. We tiptoed past the bedroom where David was sleeping, careful not to make a sound. My heart raced in anticipation, every step bringing us closer to the next dangerous act. Once inside the bedroom, the only sound was the soft rustle of sheets as David shifted in his sleep. I motioned for Liam to hide under the bed, and without a word, he slid beneath it, his pulse racing as he settled into the darkness. I climbed into bed beside David, curling up next to him as though nothing had happened. But I could feel it, the tension beneath the surface, the burning desire for Liam that had yet to be satisfied. I waited patiently, listening to David's breathing slow as he drifted into a deeper sleep. I had to make sure he was sleeping and did not notice I was not there. When I was sure David was asleep, I slid off the bed, my head hanging over the edge. My lips found Liam's in the darkness, and we kissed with a desperation that felt as though we were stealing moments from time itself. Our hands reached for each other, every touch more forbidden than the last, as we indulged in the thrill of our secret. But even then, it wasn't enough. Our desire had grown too strong, too overwhelming to control. I slipped under the bed with Liam, our bodies immediately entwined in the cramped space. We moved together in a frenzy of passion, our breath coming in quiet gasps as we gave in to the forbidden acts we had been craving all night. Every touch, every kiss felt dangerous, fueled by the knowledge that David was only inches away, unaware of the betrayal unfolding beneath him. The thrill of it all, the secrecy, the danger, the ever-present risk of getting caught only made it more exhilarating. We lost ourselves in each other, hidden in the shadows beneath the bed, completely consumed by our forbidden desires. The night stretched on, and we continued our affair, our bodies moving together in the darkness, lost in the depths of passion. The risk of discovery only made it more intoxicating and more dangerous. Now I could feel Liam's hand between my legs, trying to touch me passionately. He knew what strings to pull, and I was moaning. Then he opened my legs and brought his head in between, pleasing me like never before. However, more was yet to happen. I could feel something hard between my legs. Yes, it was happening. Things continued this way all night, and we could feel every part of our body ache with tiredness. Then I went up to the bedroom. As I lay in bed beside David, my thoughts swirling with the events of the night, I felt a strange, almost terrifying anticipation for what was to come next. The thrill of deception had taken hold of me, and there was no turning back now. In the morning, David woke up before I did and got ready for the office. He saw me opening my eyes slightly.
I can't meet Liam now. See him off from my side when he leaves.
He said. "Okay, honey," I said. The moment David's car pulled out of the driveway, I felt my pulse quicken. Before I could even think, Liam was already at the doorway of the bedroom, shirtless, his smirk filled with knowing desire. That smirk, God, I had been craving it since last night. My body moved on instinct, closing the space between us. Before I could even speak, his lips were on mine, urgent, hungry. It was exactly the kind of kiss that made my knees weak, the kind that sent that thrilling electricity shooting through me. I melted into it, letting go of everything except this, the rush of forbidden passion, the need that consumed every rational thought. My hands moved across his bare chest as he explored my body with that same desperate hunger. We moved through the house like we were the only two people in the world, our desire insatiable, every moment building on the one before. Hours passed by in a blur of tangled limbs and breathless kisses. He was moving over me, giving me what I wanted. It was as though time stopped existing the moment David left. I forgot everything about the life I was supposed to be living, slipping further into the trap of my desires. When Liam whispered my name, it was as though I was alive in a way I hadn't been for years, reckless, untamed, free. David didn't exist in this space. Nothing did. only the fire that Liam lit in me. By the time evening arrived, we lay together on the living room floor, our bodies tired from hours of indulgence. The afterglow lingered in the air around us, but even then, I could feel the stirring of more. The day wasn't over, and neither was the fire. I heard David's key in the door before I saw him. Liam and I had already composed ourselves, sitting comfortably on the couch when David walked in. But I could see the shift in his face immediately. He was suspicious. The small whisper of doubt that had been nagging him earlier must have grown louder, more insistent. He wasn't blind. Something was off, and he knew it. I tried to mask my nerves with a smile as David greeted us, though I could feel his unease cutting through the air like a knife.
Still here, Liam?
David asked, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes.
Thought you'd have left by now.
Liam chuckled nervously beside me, but I could sense the tension in him too.
Emily insisted I stay a little longer. I didn't want to impose, but she said it was no trouble.
David glanced at me, and though I returned his smile, I knew it wasn't fooling him. Something was slipping between us. Trust, maybe. Or maybe it had already slipped, and I hadn't noticed it until now. We sat down for dinner again, the same scene playing out as the night before, but this time, the air was heavier. The tension crackled around us, and every glance Liam and I exchanged felt charged with more than just passion. It was the thrill of deception, but it also felt dangerously close to being discovered. As dinner progressed, Liam and I communicated in secret looks, the old plan from the previous night silently forming between us. When I poured David's drink, I subtly crushed the laxatives into his glass, stirring them in carefully, just as I had before. I smiled sweetly, pretending everything was perfectly normal. But this time, David's eyes lingered on me for a bit longer, and I could tell something was different. He took the drink, but I knew by the way he hesitated that he was onto something. Still, he smiled and lifted it to his lips, pretending to drink. My heart raced with the anticipation that it would work again. But David was smarter than I had given him credit for. Excusing himself from the table, David headed to the bathroom. I didn't think much of it until he took longer than usual. He wasn't rushing in pain like the night before. Instead, he was silent. Unsettlingly so. When he returned, he smiled weakly, rubbing his stomach.
It must be something I ate last night.
He said, his voice casual but thin.
I'm feeling awful again. I think I'll head to bed early.
Relief washed over me. I could almost feel the anticipation bubbling up in my chest again. He was going to leave us alone, just like before. My eyes lit up as I nodded. Of course, honey. Rest. I'll check on you in a bit. David nodded, dragging himself upstairs, or at least pretending to. I had no idea that behind those tired eyes he was wide awake, waiting, just as I was, for something to happen. The house fell into that eerie silence again. Liam and I both believed that David was fast asleep, completely unaware of what was happening under his roof. I felt the heat rising between us again, that irresistible pull. It didn't take long for us to fall into each other once more. Our lips collided, and our clothes fell away in a passion. We stumbled into the bedroom where the danger of it only made the desire burn hotter. We kissed deeply, our bodies pressed together with reckless abandon, completely lost in our world. The sound of our gasps and our skin against each other filled the room, and for a moment, everything outside of us ceased to exist. But I didn't know that David was awake just behind the door, his heart pounding with rage. I didn't know he could hear every sound, each one confirming his darkest suspicions. Then everything changed. The door flew open with a bang, and David's voice cut through the room like a blade.
What the hell is going on here?
Liam and I froze, horror flashing across our faces. We scrambled for the sheets, desperately trying to cover ourselves. But it was too late. The damage was done, and the betrayal was out in the open, naked for David to see. David's face was flushed with rage, his fists clenched at his sides. I had never seen him like this before, and the sight of him, so angry, made my stomach twist.
If I wanted to, I could make you both disappear, and nobody would know. A lover came and killed somebody's wife and was also killed by her husband. A perfect headline. But I will make both of you regret this your entire lives. Get out.
He growled, his voice cold and sharp.
Both of you, get out.
I could barely find the words as I tried to speak. My voice trembled as I stammered, "David, please, don't."
I trusted you, Emily.
He cut me off, his voice low and dangerous.
And this is what you do?
Liam dressed quickly, not daring to look David in the eye. He left the room in a hurry, his face pale with shame. I followed behind him, my heart heavy with the realization that everything was falling apart. Now, I had nowhere to go, and Liam did not want to take me with him. I was standing in the middle of the street,